Hello, welcome back to Assorted Beefs, where I talk about anything I want to that doesn't fit into niche tea for any particular reason. Honorary niche tea edition, because we're talking about tea. Talking about the Queen of Afternoon Tea versus the Cupcake Cafe in Ontario, Canada. The Queen of Afternoon Tea is a TikTok creator who, shockingly, really loves afternoon tea. She posts a variety of content relating to tea, but the big thing that she does is visit every place that offers afternoon tea of any kind and gives very comprehensive reviews of that experience that she has. Her reviews are very thorough. I feel like I learned a lot just watching a couple of them. She has specific things that she wants and things that she doesn't, and she has things that color her particular experience, and she's pretty upfront about that when she goes into the reviews, at least from my perspective. So a couple weeks back, she posted a video review of a place in Ontario, Canada called the Cupcake Cafe and their afternoon tea. The review is pretty commonly being referred to as scathing, so that tells you how she felt about the experience. I do want to recommend everyone go and watch her stuff if you are interested in tea at all. She's very thorough, as I mentioned before. But the very high level is that there were just a lot of smaller things throughout that she really didn't like, and they just added up to be a bad experience. She basically said that the ambiance and location was mid. She didn't think the tea selection was diverse enough, especially because it only had one non-caffeinated tea. There were things listed as part of the tea service on the website that she didn't get in person. For example, there were supposed to be chocolate-covered strawberries that they didn't get. The savory foods in particular were not to her liking, and she specifically called out that the bread seemed to be pretty old and dry. She didn't think there was very attentive service during the tea, but also overall she didn't feel like there was a lot of attention being paid to like the small details that make an afternoon tea service nice. So for example, she kept talking about how they gave her full-size dinner plates for like these afternoon little snack things, and she thought it looked kind of silly. And she also called out the way everything was served. So like in her opinion, tea should be served first, and then people should be given time to like enjoy their tea and then be given the food, and they kind of all came at once, I think. And she said, especially at the price point of 55 Canadian dollars, I have no frame of reference for whether or not that's high or low for afternoon tea, but for that price point, she said she expected more. That's pretty much the review, and it is a negative review, but something I think is also adding to the perception of it being like scathing is the way she speaks. She has a pretty flat tone, and she speaks in fairly clipped sentences, which is probably just what she's comfortable doing from a voiceover standpoint, but it does make negative or potentially neutral statements sound even more negative. But I will say personally that I expected more when I heard that this was like a terrible review. Like, she didn't go in and say this is total ass or anything. She just said this is what I felt about each of these things. So this initially went up. I'm not sure how much traction it initially got, but it then got way more because the place, the Cupcake Cafe that she was reviewing and gave the scathing review to, then made a TikTok to respond to her. In that video, the owner, representative, I'm not entirely sure, for the Cupcake Cafe comes on and says they take reviews really seriously and they care about honest reviews, but they don't consider this one to be honest because turns out the Queen of Afternoon Tea has a competing tea business. So she's straight up saying that this was fraudulently done with the intent of hurting another business, and that it wasn't a representative review of what their services are or of the Queen of Afternoon Tea's actual experience. Like, they're basically saying she's lying to help her own business. They then say specifically that she, the Queen of Afternoon Tea, has sent her followers to harass them, leave a bunch of fraudulent one-star reviews, and send them unalive threats and DMs. They then go through and do give responses to the criticisms given in the original review video. They say the bread for the food was bought that day, so if it was bought stale, then that's an issue with the supplier. They say the reason the chocolate strawberry was missing from the tea service was because they found out that day that the strawberries they had gotten had gone bad overnight, and they were like, okay, well, we can't give this to anybody. So they claim they offered substitutions to them when they came in, and those were declined. Something I actually forgot to mention from the original review was that the Queen of Afternoon Tea was not happy with the amount of clotted cream and jam that was given to them for 2 scones. It wasn't enough to cover the scones. In the response, they say that was an oversight. You should have gotten more, and you could have asked for more, and we're not sure why you didn't. And they addressed the large plates thing for some reason. To me, that's the silliest possible criticism, but again, I am not a tea person, so I don't know. And basically, they just had to substitute it out that day, apparently. Okay. Then they go back to talking about the harassment they claim they've been getting and mental health, and they go into this whole separate thing about resources for people struggling with unalive threats or unaliving ideation. It was a whole separate thing. On the whole, I would say this response was not fairly well received. My general feeling about the whole thing is you're doing too much. This was, in my opinion, very over the top as a response from a business. Just top to bottom, honestly. Starting with the idea that the Queen of Afternoon Tea did a malicious review specifically to bolster her own business. She does, it seems, own her own tea room in Ontario, but it seems like it's roughly an hour away from where this one is. And from her page, you can see she reviewed reviews basically any place that she can go to for afternoon tea. She's also given plenty of high ratings, and that includes places that are physically close to both the Cupcake Cafe and her own tea room. And on top of that, for whatever it's worth, I see very little branding for her tea room on her page. Like, even the link that goes to her website and her bio is a website dedicated to just informing people about all the different tea rooms in Ontario. It's not a business website. There's also no evidence that she sent anyone to do anything. Nothing about her review did that. Like, I've watched it several times. She wasn't asking for anything from anyone on this. She specifically just gave her experience. She wasn't asking for advocacy, to tag anybody, or to do anything. She wasn't saying that she was wronged. She was saying she had a bad experience. There's no reason anyone would watch that, I think, reasonable person, and take away from that, oh, I need to go and spam them and bother them. It does seem like their Google page is getting more one-star reviews that are false, and they're working to keep those down, but certainly not hundreds. And I want to point out, for those who might go to look into it now, keep an eye on when those reviews came in. Most of them have come in since their response video. So to me, this says that people really didn't like your response video, plus it being a little bit of a Streisand effect where people who wouldn't have known about any of this are now into it because you've made it bigger than it was. As far as the response to all the individual things, there's always stuff that's going to come up day to day in your business. Part of owning a business is understanding that stuff goes wrong and it can affect the experience of other people. And just because you think it's a suitable solution, your point of view won't necessarily translate to what a consumer is expecting. Like, at the very worst, even if she was being super unreasonable about all of these points and they all had total reasonable explanations, that doesn't change the fact that it affected her experience. And the best thing as a business you can do is read it and either implement a change or ignore it. Making a whole TikTok account to respond to a single bad review is almost never going to be the right choice. Finally, the unalive resources awareness piece really rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not going to debate whether they are or are not getting any level of harassment, and if they are, that is completely not okay. But putting that in there serves no purpose other than to virtue signal. Point blank, period. Why would anyone watching this video need those services? Who outside of you is getting any negative feedback on this? Doesn't mean that your personal struggles are invalid or that you don't need help, etc., but it serves no direct purpose in this video other than for optics. The impression I get is that the owners, managers, whatever, of the Cupcake Cafe are very defensive about criticisms of the business. On top of this video, which in itself is doing entirely too much, again, my opinion. Even if you go through their Google reviews, like even before any of this happened, they respond to like any 3-star and below review that has details to it, it seems like. And it's not that it's bad, it's just too much. Like, if someone's leaving you a review that's 2 sentences long, why are you leaving them an essay? Who cares that they didn't list every single dessert option that you guys offer? Why are you telling people that you had someone in the back who was tampering with your food items and that you fired them? Like, that actually does not make me feel better. And then you're asking other people who was working the day you came in. Like, you're clearly looking for any possible excuse for stuff and over explaining. I think this is just kind of how they are. Anyway, the queen of afternoon tea has not responded. She's currently in Vegas, which is where I'm about to go, which I'm very excited about. If anyone happens to be going to the XG concert tomorrow, I will see you there. Come say hi. And yeah, I'm going to have weird backgrounds if and when I post over the next 4-ish days. Bye!